Hello and welcome everybody, I'm Barbarian and we are back with news about Crusader Kings III. Today we have summer teaser number 2, 3 and 4 and then today's dev diary number 67. I don't want to waste your time, so I didn't cover these summer dev diaries, or rather summer teasers, in individual videos. Instead we're going to do that all the way together here in this one. Now if you've already seen the teasers, then you can skip ahead. There will be chapters in this video of all the respective teasers, but also of course of all of the dev diaries. The dev diary itself today has good news, and it has a bit of a disappointing section of the news, but we're going to get to that in a second. Let's just jump into the summer teaser number 2. Summer teaser number 1 was already covered, I believe, in a very own video. Now, in this one, we're going to take a look at some ethoses. At least I believe that is what we're going to be doing. Indeed, we are. Communal, all African characters, same culture, mercenary, higher cost, minus 15%, close family opinion, plus 5, and then the building construction goes faster and is cheaper. I will say, I actually really like the culture, mercenary, higher cost, because that does make it so that as a small culture, you might not want to be building up. You might be in a position where you say, hey, instead, I would like to hire the mercenaries that are important because they are significantly cheaper. You can go surprise the AI. I think this gives a way to a different playstyle, and I will always be a big fan, basically, of, them giving us an opportunity here to have a different playstyle. Then we have courtly. These are the French characters. Monthly prestige goes up, title creation cost goes down, and house opinion goes up, and court grandeur base goes up by plus 10 as well. Oh, let me just read the flavor text here. This culture values the bonds of community above all else, fostering great loyalty and dedication by working together towards common goals, and the ceremony of court life is so integral to this culture that it forms a core part of people's social behavior, a place for everyone and everyone in their place. I really like the idea that the French can form this magnanimous and gigantic empire, because you have to think about it. Title creation cost goes down, while at the same time prestige goes up. You can be one of the most well-respected rulers simply by adhering to the principles of your culture. Again, this should give you a bit of a different playstyle. I think the French basically encourage blobbing, I'll just say it, because you will be in a position of creating duchies and kingdoms, if you're an emperor, to hand out fairly liberally to your vassals, making it so that they effectively will never be angry at you if you can get that done. And of course, the additional prestige is big, making it so that you're in a position of simply getting the opinion bonus of, for example, waging war, invading a kingdom on the kingdom level scale, and that all with your prestige. Fairly strong, but I think that what we have noticed when it comes to a trend is that these ethoses are fairly defining of how you can play a character and what is beneficial for your character. Now here we have egalitarian. This is a cultural acceptance gain plus 35%. That is massive. Truly very beneficial if you have a multicultural empire. All Basque characters, vassal limit plus 5, so this is something that the Basques will have. Of course, they are focused on something where they can hand out, for example, titles to women. That is fairly normal in Basque culture. We have the vassal limit plus 5 and different culture opinion and different faith opinion plus 5 as well. That can be rather significant. Intolerance and isolationism may be the way for others, but this culture recognizes that accepting differences is far better than annihilating it. I really like this one as well. Again, gives you a massive change. Now, what I'm hoping for, and this is not something that has been confirmed, this is not something that is really put in at all, but in the light of me wanting to do new video content, I have recently started to read through so many academic papers, and so many focused on how important it was, whether it is via trade, via marrying into a different family. Something that I have seen mentioned in various papers is, for example, Empress Theophano from the East Roman Empire marrying into the Holy Roman Empire under Otto the Great, or with Otto the Great, I should say, and all of that leads to a huge exposure of culture, making it so that these cultures like one another, and maybe, hopefully, that you can, at least to a certain degree, influence cultural exposure as well. Not confirmed, I don't know whether that's going to be a thing, but I think the potential is there. I hope that we're going to see it. Anyway, egalitarian is a pretty good ethos. And then we have stoic, all Polish characters, so the Polish will be stoic. Yeah, that sounds rather fair, I think. Disease resistance, health, a small boost. Stress gain, minus 15%. Friendly fatal casualties, minus 15%. And all Polish holdings, defender advantage, plus 5. The defender advantage, in particular, I will mention that right now. The defender advantage is crazy. That can win you wars. Nothing else really can. It is very reminiscent, I feel, of the Baltic faiths in CK2. I think they may even still have it in CK3, I'm not entirely certain. But they have this defending advantage, and basically, honestly, if you're Slavic, or if you are, for example, Baltic, then you might be in a position where anyone that attacks you will die, even if you have way fewer troops. I think this is a really strong position here when it comes to Stoic, but yet again, I really want to highlight this because it follows the mantra of Crusader Kings III, that is how I would frame it. If everything is overpowered, nothing is overpowered. Look at Courtly, it is so strong when it comes to the prestige builder, when it comes to the cost of titles, the mercenary cost is significant. Then the cultural acceptance, of course, and last but not least, the beautiful, beautiful defender advantage. That is something else. So, honestly, the way I feel about this, all of these are good, all of these are strong, and I like to see them, or I would like to see them in the actual framework in action. Now, let's move on to teaser number 3. As you may know already, minor titles will be returning alongside the upcoming expansion, Royal Court, allowing you to appoint a court jester, a seneschal, and more. As you might expect, we'll be adding a number of new events that make use of these appointed characters, but we are no strangers to also updating existing content if need be. Now, that is not news. We already knew that. They already updated a bunch of other ones that they had available, lifestyle events. They added children events and whatnot just on the side, basically. So, yeah, this is pretty par for the course. We generally want features to be visible wherever it makes sense, and updating content can be a part of making old events have new and interesting options or additional variety and flavor. Here are a few examples of events that we have updated. The Walls of Würzburg. The delegation from Würzburg slowly fills out of my files out of my private chambers. Our long meeting finally over. Oh yeah, I remember this event very well. The petitioners beg for money to repair the crumbling walls of the holding, and have invoked my lordly duty to help them. I drum my fingers on the table, pondering whether to send them funds. Good fortifications are hideously expensive. Of course, the walls are crumbling anyway. Then I could always divert their existing stipend to more personal matters. My royal architect shall supervise the reconstruction. Let's take a look at this. So this is based on the stewardship of Podesta Mariano, which is this guy apparently. The royal architect masterfully improves the walls of Würzburg, that's a 57% chance. Adeptly rebuild walls for 100 years, wow. 28% successfully rebuilds the walls of Würzburg, gains adeptly rebuild walls for 20 years. Jesus, he must be really good at stewardship if you get a 57% chance for 100 years improvement. Or you could also have disastrously rebuild walls for 20 years, 13%. Well, I don't know about that, but that is pretty neat, gives you a different opportunity. There is no cost attached to this. I feel like there should still be a cost attached. Now, this is not a finished product here, but even if the Royal Architect is that good, he would be using your money, wouldn't he? But, you know, either way. The lure of language. Ruling the multicultural, the Seljuk Empire comes with its own set of challenges. Foreign subjects often feel alienated when they cannot speak their native tongue in court, breeding resentment. My steward, who looks incredibly cool by the way, Patriarch Sabrisha with the Iron Mask, suggests that I could significantly improve relationships with my Assyrian subjects by learning to speak their language alongside my own. My court tutor can certainly help me. You learn the Aramaic language. Wow! Seriously, 90%? And then it's just like you instantly learn it? That is crazy good. Are you actually kidding? What is this? The Diplomacy Lifestyle Event, the Lure of Language. Oh my god. That is so strong. That is genuinely strong. But I have to assume that this is basically based on maybe the character already wanting to learn a language. This is honestly, this is crazy. Obviously, you need a good court tutor, but still really strong. Murder Preventer, Cupbearer. An assassin has made an attempt on my life. Thankfully, my cupbearer, Harazim Hadeva, had taken the liberty of helping himself to a sip of my spiced wine before serving me today. What cruel degenerate was behind this? Well, there he is, or well, was. He is certainly no longer alive. Very interesting. I like all of these events, of course, also being secured. I do want to mention, and we are moving outside of the content that has been announced, the content that we can hope for. I want to make that clear. I really hope that this is something that they are considering. I really hope that this is something that we may see. I highly doubt that it will be with this expansion, but I do want to bring it up because there's dialogue behind the scenes between me and modders and so on and so forth. And I have to say that there was a really good modding idea earlier in my Discord just today that was basically about the topic of connecting schemes to events. So, for example, if I host a banquet, so if I host a feast, and I have a scheme to murder someone, what if I invite that person and poison them there? Can't that have an influence on something? Can't a scheme possibly say, hey, what if we start up this feast idea, or a tournament, or a marriage of, I don't know, my heir, something like that. And then you have a window where you can start these events, and in that window, you can then start to initiate the murder plot. I would really like that. We have something fairly similar here. We have a situation where one of our court, royal minor titles makes it so that we are secure from being assassinated. What if we turn it around and make it so that, you know, for example, hey, if you have a bodyguard, then you may bring down the percentage to be heard in a tournament because, you know, the bodyguard is there for you. I think that would be interesting, connecting schemes and then putting that together with the wonderful events that we already have in the game. What do you think about that? I personally really like that idea. It came from what? I think it came from Stick, who made terms and conditions apply. It could have also come from Uber, honestly, I'm not entirely sure. Two great modders. You've surely played Kingdom of Heaven, one of the greater mods that I will also cover on the channel very much in the future, here in the very soon future. But yeah, those were great ideas. I really hope that they will be something that we might even see in the vanilla game. Now, number 4. I've got another set of traditions for you today. To do be rare, is that a word? Oh my god, I need to learn English, don't I? Do keep in mind that these are a work in progress and may be subject to change. Here we have charitable, the generous trait is more common, the compassionate trait is more common, opinion gain from send gift plus 20%, that is big, that is big. I remember, you already get a modifier, I believe it doubles it, of sending a gift in the diplomacy trees. I did that with Dear the Stranger, where I did the Vladimir Second Choice achievement on stream, and it was so insanely powerful. Everybody got like 120 in opinion that I was able to convert the entire realm in no time whatsoever, because all the characters immediately turned. Rulers of this culture use the send gift interaction more often, that is pretty cool. All Malinka characters, I would guess in the Indian subcontinent, but honestly, I'm not entirely sure. It could also be Sub-Saharan Africa. It's certainly not a culture that I am familiar with. Monthly income minus 3% and general opinion plus 5. Regardless of faith, people of this culture are motivated to support those less fortunate. That is quite neat. I really, in particular, beyond just giving you a percentage modifier, which very quickly becomes a bit arcadey, becomes a bit board gamey, you look at this and you go, oh, now that's what I do. You have a situation here as well where you simply get the generous and compassionate trait more often. I think that is pretty neat. It changes the game on a fundamental level where you interact with characters that are different from characters all over the map otherwise, so I think, again, pretty neat. Parochialism? Parochialism. City holdings give more taxes, development, and levies. City holdings significantly lower control gain. Interesting. So independent cities, but they do give you more taxes, development, and levies. All Tamil characters, city buildings construction minus 10, holding construction minus 10%, and republic vassal opinion minus 20 as well. City residents of this culture are fiercely competitive and independent. They invest a lot of money and energy to make sure that their city is the grandest. See, I have to admit, looking at this, so they pay you more taxes, but they lower control gain. Since you barely ever hold cities yourself, this means that your Republican mayors, for example, they will dislike you, but they will pay you more. Isn't that just a net zero result? Barely net zero anyway? Am I mistaking something here? This is the first one. I like, honestly, this picture is amazing. Can I just say that? I like the idea behind this, but I feel like it would kind of make more sense if we had trade in the game, huh? I don't see the benefit of this one. Do please enlighten me. If you think this is a strong perk, a strong tradition, I don't see why I would ever take this one. The first one, where I objectively, or well, personally, I don't see it, so objectively from my point of view, which makes it subjective, but I have to say, don't like this one. Ting meat can enact the Scandinavian elective succession law. Of course, all of that so far, you know, if you were English, if you were Celtic, if you were Scandinavian, then you would have the option to implement these laws, but you wouldn't actually know about it unless you check the decision tab. So, or rather, if you check the decision tab or the title succession tab. So I have to say, this is pretty good. It tells you that you have this available if you have this in your culture. Certain traits such as brave, gregarious, generous, or blade master give popular opinion. That is also big, changing Scandinavian elective up even more. Scandinavian elective, personally, my personal favorite when it comes to succession laws. I think that one is the most fun, and by making popular opinion even more interesting by being a good character, I think we are gaining significant mileage on that. In Scandinavia, the distances and wilderness render centralized authority ineffective. When disputes must be resolved and decisions made, the Ting meet is gathered, an assembly of peers presided over by a law speaker. Then we got tribal unity. Characters with a familial hierarch trait are seen as prestigious and will be able to raise more levies. That is pretty cool. Personal scheme success chance plus 30% against house members. That is also pretty cool, but I will then again admit that you already get hooks on all of those people anyway. Most of the time, you don't really need to do anything like make them lovers, which, I mean, it's your house members, but you know what I mean, right? I like the benefit nonetheless. This is clearly a positive. Gain prestige when granting titles to house members. Oh, that is so good. Lose prestige when revoking titles from house members. Yeah, I like this one a lot. Seriously, I like this one a lot. All Bedouin characters, opinion of liege -5 and house opinion +10. Of course, this does reflect the Bedouin culture of basically being family clans, which is also why we have, in the first place, the clan system in CK3. This culture emphasizes the familial and communal bonds its people share, pushing them to remember their shared heritage. Then, last but not least, we have the Warrior of the Dry. The Desert Warrior commander trait is more common. Some commander traits and personality traits have extra dry terrain bonus. Oh, that is so good. Oh, I love this. What? That is so strong. Some commander traits and personality traits have extra dry terrain bonuses. So, I don't know, let's say ambitious makes it so that you have a very specific set of tactics inside of the desert. This is, in a way, frankly. So, let me explain this. Oh my god, honestly, this is crazy to me. So if you haven't played CK2, then you will not know about this. If you have played CK2, you'll probably also not know about this, because it was basically a hidden mechanic. In CK2, based on the personality of a character, they would choose tactics, and by choose, I mean the RNG would randomly select something. And with that tactic, they would then go against the enemy, which can clash against their tactic. Now, this isn't a direct revival of this at all, and I will tell you in CK2, it was really bad, because you basically had to look at a Wikipedia page to even understand that these tactics exist, and that they have such an impact on battles, and even then they didn't really have that much of an impact, because bigger wins. That is more true in CK2 than it is in CK3. But I really like this idea here, because effectively it says, hey, if you have a certain personality type, you will improve how you fight in certain terrain on a guaranteed basis. I actually like this. I think this is a good idea. Gain a decision to recruit dry terrain commanders. I really like that. Seriously. I think this is a great... Yeah, wow. Have extra dry terrain bonuses. I really like this. This is the way, in my opinion, that tactics should return. It makes it understandable, it makes it transparent, and most importantly, it doesn't make it a random dice throw. It makes it so that you know what you are dealing with and can employ it. A big fan. This culture has mastered the art of fighting in very dry climates. You get more levies, you get supply limit. Wow, yeah, this is just... That's a strong one. That is. In a certain region of the world. This is insane, basically. Let's move on to today's actual dev diary. Number 67, a view to a map. Now, this is a dev diary that will make some of you happy. That may make some of you sad. It certainly made me happy and sad. It's nonetheless the first dev diary since the summer break. They have returned, many of them, most of them have returned from the summer vacation. So let's just jump in. Most of the work we have spent on cultures has naturally gone into the cultural overhaul itself, but we have made some general improvements as well, most notably over in India. Starting with a small culture addition in Southern Europe, and that some of you keen-eyed readers noticed back in a previous dev diary. I did notice. We've added back a fan favorite from CK2, Carantanian. From a historical point of view, the culture is of a West Slavic origin, but as they cut off... From a historical point of view, the culture is of a West Slavic origin, but as they got cut off from their ancestral brethren in the Carpathian bases, they became gradually closer to the South Slavic peoples. We represent this by Carantanian having a West Slavic heritage, but speaking a South Slavic language. This is super cool. Carantanians missing was a huge shame. This used to all be Bavarian in CK3. Them coming back is very, very cool. Big supporter. I really like it. You can see South Slavic language. You can't speak it. This is what this means. West Slavic heritage. It's martial min only. Carantanian aesthetics, of course, makes sense. We got martial admiration and we got mountaineer ruralism, which I can only hope is basically benefits to having holdings in mountainous areas, and maybe something related to, you know, similar things to Warriors of the Dry. I think that would be quite neat. I will also say, the bad news I'm going to present to you right now. When it comes to European cultures that have been added in this update so far, I mean, the hope for me still exists that they might add more, but this is it. There's no Crimean Goths, there's, are Albanians in CK3? I don't think they are. There's no Albanians, there's no, whatever else you might be missing. It's disappointing. I'll tell you straight up, I was disappointed. I was really hoping for the Crimean Goths. I think such a cool little minority in Crimea, quite the interesting minority going on there, of course, with its ties to, you know, antiquity and so on and so forth. But they're not making it in. I wanna make that clear. That is in the dev responses here in this thread. Yeah, fairly disappointing. I am not a big fan of it. I really wanted to see them. I wanted to see all the other minor cultures that were added in one of the later updates in CK2, because if this culture overhaul isn't where you add these, then when do you add them? But, well, apparently not in this one. Let's talk about Indian culture changes. Trint Regular, who you might know as a modder, as EU4 dev, as Imperator Rome dev, and now as a CK3 dev, has worked on India. I really like this. I really think that is a great idea, because India is an incredibly diverse subcontinent where there is so much going on there, and giving you more opportunities to know what is going on, and most importantly, more opportunities to create new things, I think is a big step up. To better reflect the diversity of the subcontinent, we have added 2 new cultures, changed the old ones a bit, and also added a great number of potential culture names for when the large starting cultures diverge. First of all, we have gotten rid of Hindustani culture, and 2 new cultures have been broken away from what it used to cover in the south. The core part of the culture covers the Gangetic plains and is now known as Kanauji. I'm probably mispronouncing that. After the imperial city of Kanauj, Kanyakubja, which was the main prize of the region and often gave its name to it. If you know how to pronounce that, do let me know. Hindustani itself is still around in a way as a possible name for a culture hybrid between an Iranian or Turkic culture with one of the North Indian cultures. This is really, really cool. So Hindustani is something that was basically established after the Muslims pushed into India and, you know, established their sultanate over here, the Sultanate of Delhi primarily, and you would just gain that here in this region if you go ahead and actually take it and then convert it, or rather start a hybrid culture. I think that is really neat. I think that is rather significant. Because it makes it so that there is some real gameplay opportunity. Honestly, I would love to play the Ghaznavids, push into this territory, and actually form a new culture, create a new era in the north that previously, I mean, was already established because Hindustani already existed. Really cool. Starting in the central parts of India, the newly added Gond culture has been carved out of areas that were previously Hindustani, Marathi, or Oriya. In 1066, most Gond counties are under the control of the Sedi kingdom, and many of these counties are now also tribal at start. This culture covers a region that was in an odd place in the old setup, at the border of several cultures, but not quite belonging to either of them. What do we have here? We got Dravidian heritage, we got Telugu language, Gond aesthetics, marshalmen only, we got jungle warriors, probably like the dry warriors, and that is so cool. You're gonna get modifiers for fighting in jungle with these people. If you, for example, let's say you are an Iranian culture, or you are a Turkic culture, and you do what I talked about earlier, you move into the Indian subcontinent. If you find yourself a Gond commander that has jungle modifiers, you can have an insane local fighter in this territory, because it would be specialized on jungle. Very, very cool. I'm a huge fan, if this is indeed working like Dry Warriors, which I have to assume at this point. Sacred Groves, what are they? They're communal, by the way. We got culture blending. I can only assume that this means that cultural acceptance is probably easier to gain for this culture. Also a very, very cool effect. I like this a lot. Covering the Malwa Plateau, as well as some of the adjacent regions that were previously considered Hindustani. This new culture shares a language with the Rajasthani and Gujarati culture, Gurja Aphavramsa. My apology. No, it's not actually Aphavramsa, it's Apabramsa. There we go. Gurja Apabramsa. The existing Rajput culture has been renamed to Rajasthani, since Rajput is a cultural distinction, does not really fit our start date. And Assamese is now known as Kamarupi. What do we have here? Gurja language, Indo-Aryan heritage, marshalmen only, Malvi aesthetics, fervent temple builders, so I assume they are cheaper, probably give you more piety when you build them. We got mystical ancestors, which I think we saw revealed, but honestly I can't quite remember. Khatka Puja is the reverence of the sword. So that was, actually this was amazing. So this was mentioned at the very start, I think, of these dev diaries about this culture update. And this is basically them quite literally worshipping the sword, saying, hey, our swords are quasi-holy objects, and we have to admire them because they strengthen us, they bring us into the battle and bring us out successfully yet again. I'm a big fan. I think that is a really cool tradition right here as well. Agrarian, on the other hand, I mean, fairly straightforward. I assume that if you live in a certain, you know, in the plains or in, for example, territory that actually has fields, you will be in a position to just be more wealthy. Indian history and title improvement. A number of baronies have been renamed and reorganized into new counties, and a number of new vassals have been scripted in, especially for the 1066 start. The starting assumptions about who controlled what in 1066 have also been revisited to bring things better in line with history and create a more interesting start. There are now more starting characters, both independent and vassals, and most kings will no longer start above their domain limit. That is excellent, actually making it so that it is a fleshed out starting scenario. That is the love that India in CK3 certainly deserves. Some things like the crisis of the Chola Empire or Kola Empire could also be a bit better represented in the initial setup, with a strong and somewhat unruly Pandya vassals, a much stronger Lankan revolt, and the Kera Raja, now independent with its historical vassals to support him. You can now also play as the future king Kulotunga. There are also other minor changes, such as revisiting the extent of cultures like Kashmiri and Telugu, and assigning a number of tribal counties in the eastern central part of the subcontinent. Pretty cool. I'm a big fan. I think this is a... Honestly, I might actually play in Lanka in 1066 in particular, because this is an interesting starting position. You are fairly weak. I mean, look at this. Yeah, I would love to test it out. Then again, 2,300 min, 4,300, my apologies, is quite the amount. Anyway, pretty cool. Again, very disappointing about only Carantanian being new, and then of course the Indian subcontinental cultures, but that's it. Now let's take a look at this. They aren't ready to reveal anything that makes sense. Will there be pre-Arabic, Christian, Middle Eastern cultures? I believe they may be thinking about Coptic, for example. We haven't added any new cultures other than the ones already mentioned in the dev diary. I wish it weren't so. I wish it weren't so. Right here we got a lot of answers related to the Indian subcontinent. I think you should check it out if you have interest in that. I am sadly too uninformed to fully explain it, so I think I would leave that to you. There's no guarantee that it will happen, but we have added a number of possible divergence names for Russian culture for if a divergence happens in the game, Red Ruthenian, etc. So right now, it's still the big Russian blob, but that could be changed if people diverge. Now, I think that this is rather likely, actually, in the game, just by the AI. From what they have showcased is that, for example, the Iranian cultures that are fairly far to the west, so push into Asia Minor, for example, they tend to diverge, they tend to make a hybrid, and so on and so forth, and I think that is pretty cool. In particular, the Bedouin cultures do it as well. Yeah, I think, honestly, while I wish Russian was split from the start, I do think that if they do reliably diverge, because it is a huge culture zone, so that they should diverge just based on how large it is, if they do reliably diverge, then I don't really have a problem with it still being Russian. I understand, of course, that not everybody feels that way, but honestly, leave me be. I'm mourning the Crimean Goths today. Now, this was today's dev diary. I don't know what the next dev diary will be. If yeah, they didn't say it. Maybe we'll get a dev diary next week. I certainly hope so. Either way, this was it for today. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I would like to thank the members of the channel, namely the Barons, the Counts, and the Dukes. Thank you all so much, and I will see you later, Alligator.